Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the Adobe XD Daily Creative Challenge. My name is Howard Pinsky, Senior XD Evangelist here at Adobe, and I hope you're all doing well on this, Monday? I don't know what day it is. Monday afternoon. Just watched Brandon Gross and Julie Sandusky do their magic, and Brandon's already in the chat butchering my last name, so what else is new? Hope you're all well. We've got Sam and Laura and Cornell and Snehal. There's Brandon, and Faizi, and Anna, and Undine, Islam. Great to see everyone. If you're tuning in live, let me know in the chat who you are and where you're tuning in from. Hey, Ariana, welcome. All right, so day number 5 of the XD Daily Creative Challenge. Here's the rundown. It's evening for some of us, Howard. Yes, it is. And actually, for some of you, it's actually morning on Tuesday. Crazy. Mind blown. All right, behance.net/challenge/XD. You're going to find all the information about the XD Daily Creative Challenge. We are on day number 5. So let me run down quickly what this is all about. Every single day you're going to receive a challenge, Monday to Friday, except the first Monday, which is the welcome stream. You can join us in our Discord community chat, which, like on Friday, I don't have open. I'm a terrible host, but let me go ahead and open that, hop over here, and this is Discord. We have over 55,000 designers in Discord. All of you are amazing people. It's 11 p.m. where you are, and then 10 o'clock over there. Oh boy, that's late. I would be sound asleep by 10 or 11 o'clock. Snehal, it's 3:30 in the morning in India? What are you doing awake? I know these are exciting times, these daily challenges, but it's 3:30. I would be sound asleep. Although sometimes I have sleep apnea, so I wake up from time to time, but beside the point. So hop into Discord, have a good time, ask questions, get the information about the daily challenges, get some tips and tricks, share tips and tricks. I know some people were asking for career advice in the last stream. Hop into the career advice section. Talk amongst your fellow designers about how to land jobs and all that good stuff. There's Brandon correcting my last name. Thank you, Brandon. All right, you can watch us live. I'm live at 2 o'clock Pacific time, Monday to Friday, for this week at least. And then next week, I believe we have a new host, I think. I know the holidays are coming up, so things are all jumbled all over the place, but there'll be another host at some point in the future. And then you can share your work either in Discord or on Behance using the keyword XD Daily Challenge. It's midnight in Egypt. My gosh, all of you people are so attentive at midnight and 3 in the morning. Again, I'd be sound asleep. So, last week we started off this process building out a landing page using a little bit of background blur to add some fun effects and depth. Then we explored scroll groups to build an interactive map. We built a drop-down menu, although it was more of like a notification center using nested hover. And someone says, final week at SFSU, watching this. Okay, so students are probably cramming like crazy right now. That makes sense. Then we built out a card flip on Friday using auto animate. And then today, we're going to be getting exciting with some augmented reality experiences using 3D transform. So go ahead, if you haven't yet, grab that starter file. I'm going to go ahead and press that. It's going to launch Creative Cloud. It's going to download directly to my computer, and then in a moment, I should probably update something. In a moment, it's going to launch. It's on my other monitor. Bring it over here, and let's get going. So, we've included some inspiration on some augmented reality experiences right over here. I also have a video on 3D transforms and how it can help with augmented reality on my YouTube channel. You can, Pink Sky could be my solo 80s synth music alter ego. It could be, you never know, Sam. All right, we are going to get going. So, on this artboard here, we're going to start building out that process. And to start, we need a nice background image, right? So I'm going to grab my rectangle and draw out a rectangle across my artboard. Easy, right? Now, hopping over to Finder, which is over here, I've got all these images that I've been exploring, right? Kitchens, fitness, more fitness, a mirror. Hopefully, you know, getting your creative juices flowing on what you can do with augmented reality. A wall. Walls are good for augmented reality. You can put movies or video games back there, right? And of course, cities, right? But of course, Cyberpunk 2077 is coming out very soon. So let's go we're gonna go dark and neon-y, right? We're gonna have some fun today. So I'm gonna pop this image direct, almost looks like one of Brandon Gross's sets that he's always sitting in and driving through. He has some crazy production value. That guy is taking things up a notch. I hope he's still here. All right, so we've got this cyberpunk, very neon-y looking scenery, and we want to start adding some elements. And we want to add a bit of perspective to some of these elements. So we are, yeah, Ariana, ooh, I like that reaction. So we're gonna start fairly simple, and we're just gonna add some arrows going across on this street, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to grab my good old polygon tool today. Usually I grab the rectangle, but we're gonna start with a polygon and draw out a polygon right here, like that. Boop, fancy, right? We're gonna round out the corners a little bit. So I'm gonna grab this handle at the very top. Now polygons are a little bit different, right? You've got this handle at the top that you can round out the corner like this, but you can also grab this little guy and drag this in to create a star shape. And of course, in the properties inspector, you can also adjust the number of sides. So if you wanted like a 5-sided polygon, where did I just go? What did I, oh, I moved that. Okay, I see what happened, right? I'm using a new mouse today and I'm all over the place. And so you can make a star like that, right? Or just for fun, I know the shortcut always blows people's minds, but in the side section, if you do greater than or less than 3, you get a heart. Ah, fancy, right? All right, yeah, again, this mouse is driving me crazy. So no heart, we want this. And let's go ahead and fill this with a nice pink color. Just like that, simple, right? Nothing too crazy, not just yet at least. So what we're gonna do now is we want a few of these polygons or triangles to kind of go into the distance, go along this path. Now, you know, in the past we would put one here, drag another one, maybe, you know, done that, and then it just looks, right? That's just the theme of 2020. So we're gonna use 3D transforms to make this process so much simpler. So I've got one of my triangles looking pretty good. I'm gonna pop them into a repeat grid. Boop, just like that, right? Fancy. Now I'm gonna drag out a few additional ones. So we've got, let's go for like 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, so close. And then 8. So we've got 8 triangles, right? Looks pretty good. But we want this to go into the distance. So what we're gonna do is over here in the properties inspector, we're gonna turn on RTX on. Yes, Alexander. We're gonna turn on 3D transforms, just like that. And we've got some options inside of the properties inspector, but we've got this cool little gizmo on our canvas. And this will allow us to enter the matrix, right? And we can move it down, we can move it up, we can do all the different things. We can also push it forwards or backwards in space. Now, what you're gonna notice is if I push it lower than 0, it's gonna disappear. And you're asking, what is going on? Where is it going? This is good to point out. It's because the background layer that we added also has a Z, or has a Z index of 0. And if we push this behind it, it's gonna go behind it, right? So what I'd like to recommend is just take the background image and drop it in Z, in the depth, or whatever you wanna call it, right? -500, and just enlarge it. That way you're just giving yourself a little bit of room to work with so you can push it back, right? In space, just like that. The future, I know, right? So that's looking interesting, right? It looks okay, but there's more we can do. One aspect of augmented reality that really makes it augmented reality is the fact that many of the elements that you're designing are blending in with the background. So there's a few things we can do. One of the things I'd love to do, by the way, Command and Control T will turn off the gizmo. One thing I love to do is just add a background blur. And maybe in this case, we might drop the blur a little bit. It looks okay, right? But I think in this case, because we're working with a lot of neon colors, these purples, these pinks, these blues, we might want to bring some of that in. So of course you could increase the effect opacity. You can absolutely do that. Or you can just keep it simple and use blending options, right? So we've got all these blending modes here. We can experiment with a few of them, but I think overlay will look kind of interesting, right? It kind of blends in with that background. And all of a sudden it looks like it's part of this scene. But we may want to also bring it up a little bit or give it some additional depth. So in that case, I'm going to dive into any of these. And because we're using a repeat grid, we can edit one of them and it'll change all of them. So let's add a bit of a shadow. Let's pull it off the shape a little bit. We'll blur it just a touch more. Maybe we'll give it some color and then we'll increase the opacity, right? Look at that. Now we're getting fancy, people. So we've added a shadow. Oh, Cornell says add a glow. We could do that too. We can add a glow, we can add a shadow, whatever you feel best, you can absolutely do. But now we have this really interesting looking, design that we're working with. And of course you can play around with the different blend modes, soft light, hard light. Some of them will give you more subtle effects. Some of them will be a little bit more in your face. And of course you can change the colors as well if you want that to kind of continue that blue. But I think breaking it up, we've got some blue on the left, blue on the right, and now we've got some pinkish. Actually, you know what? Let me go a little bit more red, only because we've got this light over here. And I want to bring in some of that to make it look a little bit more natural, right? That looks pretty fancy. All right, a few more things we might want is we may want, maybe in the distance, how far you are from this particular area, right? So we're going to keep this one simple. In this case, we may not need to use 3D transforms for this. Not everything in augmented reality has to be in 3D. Some things do, but some things don't. So let's draw a circle. Let's pop this here, and I held down my shift key to make sure to constrain it to a perfect circle. And for this one, let's add a background blur. Just a subtle background blur, doesn't have to be too crazy. I'm going to drop the blur amount a little bit. You don't want to go too much because then it makes it very difficult to put anything on top of that. Just like that. And we're going to play around with the brightness and the effect opacity and all that stuff in just a moment. What I like to do is I swear, I'm going to go back to my trackpad. What I like to do is I like to put my elements on top of it. So in this case, it might be, let's say 30 feet away, right? Just like that. And let's go ahead and grab, let's say the Rift typeface is pretty nice. It's a little bit condensed, a little bit futuristic. And then of course we can bold it like crazy, like that. That looks pretty good, right? Change the color to white and make it a little bit larger. Perfect, right? So now that the text is there, we can really start to play with the brightness just like that, or we can drop it a little bit. And then for the border, what I'm going to do, I'm going to set that border to the outside. I'm going to set the color to white and then really increase it. Now, that doesn't look very good, right? It's very in your face. But if you just drop the border opacity a little bit, then it's not so bad, right? It kind of blends in a little bit. And then you can really start to play with this a little bit more, blur it a touch, have fun with it. I don't know. I can sit here all day and just figure this out, but that looks okay. And it looks like it's in the distance, even though we didn't push this back on the Z index, we didn't rotate it, it looks like it's back there. Of course, you can change the size if you needed to, make it bigger, make it smaller, but we're gonna leave it right about there. Let's see what happens if I do this. Why would I do that? I don't know what I did. No, don't like it. White looks good. All right, so we've got that looking pretty nice. And now we may want some additional elements that are in 3D space. So maybe to give you a little bit of a preview of the overall map, right? Because this looks like some sort of, you're following directions of some sort. Let's grab our rectangle, draw out our first map right there, right? Simple. But we need a map. Now, of course, we can go to Finder, we can go to Google, grab a screenshot, pop it in there. Or we can go to our plugins panel right down here at the bottom, and we've got our fancy maps plugin. I always get so excited when I use this plugin because I designed it live on Adobe Live. Are we creating a HUD? Sort of. We definitely could. So I designed this plugin live on Adobe Live. It was developed by Walter Camaro, and it's just a fantastic plugin. So let's say we're in Tokyo. There's definitely some parts of, hey Sam, there's definitely some parts of Tokyo which are very like futuristic neon colors. A lot of it's very traditional, but some of it definitely looks kind of cool. So, not that the traditional places don't look cool, but let's go ahead and change the zoom level. That looks pretty good. And let's choose one of these maps. This darker color looks pretty fancy. So I'm gonna go ahead and apply that to this shape. There we go. I can double click to adjust the mask a little bit. And what I want to do is I'm gonna set the border to a very subtle border, but I may want to also start experimenting with some of the blend modes. So let's try screen. Okay, That's not bad. It kind of gives us that fun futuristic feel. But if you want to really take it to another level, I'm going to duplicate this layer. Command and Control D. Did I do it? I missed it. There we go. And then change this to maybe color dodge. Ooh, right? Now don't ask me to explain all the blend modes. They're mathematical formulas. I failed math. Don't want to deal with that. So, but they do cool things. And I would encourage you to experiment with some of them. Some of them will make your things darker. Some of them will make your layers lighter. But this looks interesting. And then, going back to what Cornell was suggesting earlier, you can add a glow, which in this case is a shadow, right? Now, what's nice, let me blur this and bump up the opacity, just like that. What's kind of cool is because this layer has a blend mode on it, the shadow respects that as well. So it's going to give you some interesting effects as you start kind of tweaking this a little bit. You're going to notice as the colors are tweaked, it's blending in with the background a little bit, right? Fancy. I'm in love with this plugin. Me too. So now that we have our map looking interesting, right, and we can change these aspects a little bit later on, we can go ahead and group these two elements. I'm going to call this map. There we go. And now we can rotate it in space. So Command and Control T and rotate, and we can rotate it back a little bit. And now we've got this fun 3D map. We can also move it forward. Move it forward in space. Look at that. And it's coming right towards us. And it just adds to that feel of this particular 3D experience or this augmented reality experience, right? Now, over here to the right, we may want to indicate what this business is over here, right? Whenever you're on a map, Google Maps, Apple Maps, whatever it might be, it looks like a hologram. It does look like a hologram. Isn't that cool? Actually, I'm going to try something. I don't know if this is going to work. No, it didn't work. What I was thinking is you can separate the layers just a little bit, but because the blend modes are different, it doesn't work very well. But what if I change it to screen and screen and then separate it? Nope, looks ugly. Okay. Sometimes you get these ideas in your mind and they sound great and then you try them and it's like, not working. All right, so you're on maps, right? And you see different businesses. Even though you're not necessarily walking towards that business, you might see a few of them. So what we're gonna do over here to the side, we want a few elements. So first, we're going to keep things simple. Hey, Korean, welcome. I'm going to drag out a circle. Let's change the color to some sort of a reddish pink. Maybe I'll set the border to white so it stands out really nicely. And then down below, because this is a 3D experience, we may want a line pointing to the ground, just like that, right? We're going to change the color to white, increase the size. I'm going to round out the caps. Actually, let me change the dashes first, right? They're square. And now I'm going to round out the caps, just like that. So now we have these cool little lines. And of course, we can increase this. We can mess around with this. And there we go. We've got some dots leading to the ground. All right? Looks pretty good. All right, there we go. Perfect. So now above this, we may want a little bit of almost like a poster or a card that shows more information about the business. So I'm going to grab my rectangle, drag out a card just like this. And then maybe down at the bottom, we may want a bit of an indicator or a triangle pointing to this particular dot. I can go ahead and, in my Properties Inspector, flip it over, bloop, just like that. Make sure it's centered. I'm going to round out the corners of this card just a little bit. Let's go for 8 pixels. And then the triangle, definitely don't want to go 8 pixels because that will be circular. Just a little bit, let's say 3, looks pretty good, right? And then what we can do is select both of the shapes using our Shift key. And then up the top right, we are going to add them together as a Boolean object. Beautiful. All right. Looks pretty good. Now, again, going back to talking about blending, we can either use a blend mode, right? Something like that. It might look a little bit strange considering we're going to put a bunch of objects on top of this. So I think in this case, a very subtle background blur. All of a sudden, that's looking pretty good, right? I'm a big fan of subtle borders, something like that. And of course, we can play around with the brightness. We can bring in some effect opacity, and we can tweak this a little bit later on as well. Now, on the inside of this, we may want a rectangle. This is going to be maybe an image of this particular location. I can hold down my Alt or Option key to see that this is 4, 4, and 4. Perfect. I'm going to round out the corners very subtly, right? And I'm going to use this particular rectangle to house an image. So hopping over to Finder one more time, I'm going to grab, let's say, this image here. Maybe this is the inside of this particular location. Boop, pop it in there. And then right down below, type out the location. You know, Starbucks is going to be around until 2077 probably. Their drinks will be crazy expensive as usual. But you know what? Let's run with it. There's a Starbucks right there, right? And then down below, we might want to put Night City. I should probably actually left justify this. And this might be 10 feet away. Now, this is secondary information, so we don't want it as big and bold as the title. So what we're going to do actually, because I also don't want it all caps, I'm going to just change this to the Refrigerator Deluxe typeface. What a wonderful typeface. We'll go regular and then drop this in size as well. And maybe even drop it opacity a little bit too. Perfect. Now the last thing we might want to do is over to the right-hand side, or McDonald's, that too. Over to the right-hand side, maybe how many friends have checked in, or which friends are there currently. So very simple. We're going to drag out an ellipse. That's the one. Just like that. Pop them into a repeat grid. We'll do 4 of them. I'll do something like that. And if I hop over to my libraries, many of you have seen me use toy faces before. These look pretty cool for this particular. Do I have any more of those cool? Let's see. No, just those ones, I think. Those futuristic, metallic looking things. All right, and we'll go for an orange one as well. Pop these in there. There's our friends. All my friends look like that. I'm going to change the border to kind of match this background blur. I don't know. Do I like it? Probably not. But I think it'll do for now. And I'll move this over. There we go. So now that we have this, you know what? The background's not working for me. Let me bring in, there we go. That's a bit better. And now let me change the border color one more time. Beautiful. Of course, you can use a Boolean option for something like that. This is Starbucks 2076, indeed. All right, so we've got all these elements created. We're going to make sure to put them all into a group so that they rotate together. So all of these elements here, from the ellipse all the way up to this repeat grid, Command and Control G. I'm going to call this Starbucks, just like that. And now, like we did with all the other elements, we're going to rotate it. So turn on 3D transforms in the Properties Inspector, and then look at that. Look at that. Isn't that fancy? And if I zoom out, again, this mouse is driving me crazy, but there we go. And I can bring this forward a little bit if I wanted to. And I love the fact that you can move things along the Z index or Z axis, right? Because it allows you to scale objects without really scaling objects. I'm the Bob Ross of XD. Thank you, Lauren. I appreciate it. Bob Ross is Bob Ross. You can't beat Bob Ross. You can't even match Bob Ross. But the fact that my name is with his name, thank you, I appreciate that, right? So you can move this up just like this. Look at that, isn't that cool? I can move this along this, I can just do this all day. But yeah, here's how things are looking. So we created this magical path using blend modes, 3D transforms, repeat grid. We have this map over here on the left. We have this little card over here to the right. We've got this indicator down at the end. And yeah, things are looking pretty fancy if I show this in full screen. And of course, like we did on Friday with the 3D card, you can animate this as well. So I would encourage all of you, as you're working on this challenge, have some fun with it. Animate some of these things. Maybe animate these triangles to kind of going along or flashing or kind of moving, or I don't know. You have fun with it, knock yourself out. But you can do a lot of really interesting futuristic things for augmented reality in Adobe XD. So that's going to wrap it up for me for today. Big thank you to Alexander and Cornell and Faisy. If I mispronounced your name, I do apologize. Sam and Anahit, Lauren and Gurpreet. Who else do we have in here? Fausto, great to see everyone, and a big thank you for joining me today. Stick around. I believe we have Design After Dark right after me with, where's the schedule? Yes, Andrew and Micah. Micah? I'm terrible with names. I apologize. But thank you, and I will see you all tomorrow.